Well, hello. We're back
What's
at you
happening?
once
What's
again.
happening?
What's happening? Welcome to the Chatterbox with King Jacob. And we're going to be talking today about impacting the community and why we should and how we should. So I have two special guests. Um, I'm going to let Mr. Terrance Tucker introduce himself and tell you a little bit about him so you can get familiar with who he is.
Good evening, world. First off, man, let me thank my guy, man, King Jacob, for having me on. Man, such a blessed man. It's such a huge honor to be on your show.
Appreciate it.
Standing next to the Queen, Ms. Bookert. So listen, man, thank you so much for for this. My name is Terrance Tucker, founder of the T.U.C.K Project. We're this male mentoring nonprofit that started back in. We started back in Columbia, South Carolina, back in 2016, with just 5 young men from Sid Johnson High School, and then by the grace of God, we have grown now to have 195 young men in our program, and we're in Georgia, we're in North Carolina, and we're in South Carolina. And we're trying to expand further, but I'm grateful for listen, I'm extremely grateful for what what we have right now, because we that's 5 that we started out with, man. They've all graduated from college. And that's a blessing. And those are some of my main helpers. So like I say, we started this male mentoring nonprofit because we saw a need. And that need matched my purpose and my passion. And my passion was to help young men. My brother passed to gang violence, and my goal was to come back home. My prayer was to come back home and be impactful. And I thank God for that opportunity.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And next up, we have Miss DeAnna Booker. Wow. And it's so much that she does. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about her and all that she does and her wonderful self, as Mr. Tucker has already stated.
Well, thank you again for having us on the platform, and thank you for all the accolades. I truly thank God when someone can speak well of you, and you have blemishes in your past, and you know you could be called and said a number of things, but we
Mhm.
thank God for grace and for change and for open doors and favor and growth and everything else, right? So I am the owner and founder of the Bookert Agency. I've been in business since 2008. I am a consultant. And so that consulting work stems from a lot of different areas. I do workforce development, I do personal development and growth, I do business development. I help nonprofits when nonprofits are starting and doing board development and getting their boards in place. I am a community advocate. So I do a lot of things in the community that will positively impact the community, and I have a Queens mentoring program where I work with girls in urban communities. And the key thing with that is all about exposure in all those areas. If you can provide anybody with positive exposure, with education, then you've empowered them for change. And so that is what I do. You just kind of sum it up. It's all about education, exposure, and empowering others.
All right. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, oh man. all the way from ATL, the Black Mecca, how we say hot Atlanta, how we say, go get your JJ's, you get the ribs at JJ's Rib Shack, so Miss Stephanie Davis, it's so wonderful to have you here. Award-winning publicist, among other things. So I'll go ahead and let them, let you tell them about who you are and what you do.
We can't hear you.
I can't hear you, Stephanie. I don't know why.
You might have to go out and come back in. That same thing happened to me.
Can you hear me now?
There you
Yeah,
go.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right. I got a little tech in me.
Okay.
But no, what I was saying was, first of all, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity, for having me on. And I wanted to apologize for my lateness. I am an award-winning publicist with the firm based in Atlanta, in the Midtown area of Atlanta. I am the founder of Black Media Honors and the producer as well. I'm also the founder of Our Sole Purpose nonprofit organization here well, I'm not in Atlanta now, but in Atlanta. And I'm an author, my mom, I'm an empowerment strategist. I love people. I love empowering people. I love seeing people win, whether it's male or female. I just love seeing us, win and evolve and elevate into something great. And that's me.
Okay. That's her in a nutshell. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with this topic, man. And this is a much needed topic, especially in our Black community. So, impacting the community, and how do we do that? Where do we even start it? At one time we had a village that was raising all the children, because when I was growing up, you had uncles, older cousins, you had your dad, and you had your dad homeboys, and you had your dad homeboys. You like, so everybody could really, really chastise you and would nothing be said. And you knew not to say anything or give any type of looks back in those days, because you already know from jump that your parents weren't playing that, your grandparents weren't playing that. So impacting the community. So we'll start with you, Mr. Tucker, and um,
Yeah.
how do we impact the community? So how did you impact the community? Because you have an organization and you've seen young men, go from the streets to obtain a college degree. And so
Mhm.
how was that strategy for you, or how was the process for you to really see to help them transition from someone who they didn't know they could be, that
Mhm.
they become?
Mhm. Good question, King. So I think that with me, when I was growing up, I did not see the man that I wanted to be.
Hmm.
I didn't see him. My dad worked like 3 jobs. My mom worked like crazy. And you know how when you go into those little that little neighborhood convenience store, and you see there's a small section of things that you can pick from, right? And
Hmm.
so you get so used to that, right? But then when you start traveling and you go other places, and then you go to this big gas station where there's so many things to actually pick from, right? So my world was just like that small convenience store. Like my neighbors, were trashmen. You know, my dad, worked. Uh, my dad loaded trucks. You know, then my other next door neighbor sold drugs, right? Then my other next door neighbor was what we called a number runner, right? And
Hmm.
so, you know, you know, my parents didn't go to college. My grandparents didn't go to college. My neighbors didn't go to college. My teachers told us that we were not college material. So I had no idea what I could be. You see what I'm saying? So when I finally got to the point to where, I finally saw my value, then I wanted to make sure that I came back to my neighborhood to give that blueprint. And there were so many young men who were being told the exact same thing that I was being told, that you're not college material. Maybe you should go be a welder. Maybe you should go into the military. Limiting their future. So my goal, when I left Washington D.C., was to come back home and change that narrative for so many young men. And that's why I started with my high school, right? Sid Johnson High School. And I picked those 5 young men because those teachers, those guidance counselors told me that those were the worst 5 young men you ever want to meet in your life. Like, good luck with them. Here, you can have them. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of them didn't have dads. 3 of them came from group homes. So they didn't even have families. And much like that whole convenience store, what I did, was expose them to more. And I spent time with them. They were disappointed by so many people in their life, especially their dad, right? So I didn't want to be that next man to disappoint them. But when I showed them, tough love, when I showed them consistency, then they took my tough love. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that by me showing love, and by me being consistent, and by me showing them what they could be, and by me surrounding them with positive brothers, right, who actually cared about them, then they became like my little resume builders, man. Because then people started seeing, people started seeing what they were doing, and now people calling me and say, "Hey, well, if they can make it, we need you to come over here," right? So my whole goal was, not to have this huge mentoring company, but I just wanted to be impactful, to change, my community, right, first. And by me doing that, you got to start with the youth. Like, you can try your best to change men, but you'll have better luck changing young men.
Okay. I can dig it, man, because wow, that's deep. Because going back to your high school and making an impact like that, when you was told the same things that these young men was told,
yeah,
and you grab 5 particular young men,
mm-hmm.
the rut, and
the
you
mud,
you took them, you took them to the mountaintop. So I can dig that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now, Miss D, listen. You just told us a long line of things that you do when it comes to the consultancy thing. So how does that consultancy business register on impacting the community? And and how have you been able to change the narrative, with working with nonprofits and making that impact so they'll understand that we have to inspire to be inspired?
Yeah. So I used to run a mentoring program before the pandemic, and it shifted and changed everything. But like Tuck, it was for youth, but I started with the 3rd grade with little babies, and again, just like Tuck's program, I went to the guidance counselor and went to those kids that were not in any other programs, was not on honor roll, they were not in the band, they were not in chorus. They didn't, when they went home after school, 9 times out of 10, they were latchkey kids. Those were the kids that I wanted. And so what that showed me in those years of running that program was that there was a great need. But in that, it also showed me that any organization, company, nonprofit that want to do things in the community, there's a structure that's needed, right, because there's so much funding to be able to support the work. Right. So I really just kind of changed the model of what I offered to be able to help organizations and businesses create that structure so that they can go out and get money to be able to support the work. because there are things that we wanted to do. When I was doing the program, I wanted to take the kids on college trips and take them to the tour of the colleges. Well, it cost. Then I had to find money for a bus. I had to find money to feed them. And then I wanted the boys and the girls to look presentable. So I wanted them in ties and I wanted the girls to be in little dresses. Well, guess what? It cost money. And so it just gave me this inner working scope of what it took to make that impact. And so now I just help organizations to build that structure so that they can go and get funding, because the money is there, but we have to have programs that's fundable. And so there's a structure that's needed. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in purpose that we don't have structure and we don't have order. And the work, we need more willing workers like T.U.C.K. We need more men that's going to do these programs. But at the same time, they may not know how to create the platform. They may not know how to apply for 501c3. They may not know how to go and apply for grants. Somebody has to help along the way. And so I just said, okay, let me just shift it up a little bit. And, a lot of times it's just making those connections. I call myself, the connector. How can I connect them? Although I have what I have going on, but I was like, listen, Ken, you reached out to me. I said, hey, can I bring T.U.C.K? Can I bring Stephanie on? Because we can't be greedy, right? The word of God tells us that if we give, God's going to give it back. So if I've been given this opportunity to be on any platform, I'm going to always bring somebody with me, because what I'm doing is just a little small piece of the pie. And if we all have that mindset, then we can make an impact. But if we keep going around saying it's all about me and all about my organization, then we're only making that small impact. So the impact for me is to make a greater impact. And anytime a door is open for me, I'm bringing somebody else with me.
All right. Appreciate that. Now, Ms. Davis, not only are you award-winning publicist, but you do have a nonprofit as well. And so, with you knowing about branding, marketing, and publicity, as well as exposure, so how did you use those tactics to get your nonprofit exposed? And once it was exposed, how was the progression to make the impact on the community? Standing up with your nonprofit and standing on top of it, so people would know the importance of this impact.
Well, one of the things that I do with my publicity clients is when I'm developing campaigns for them, a lot of them don't have a outreach component in their brand. And I always tell them one of the major ways that you can make your brand visible is by giving back. I got a revelation of what it meant to give. And for me, once I received that revelation, it was a no-brainer from there. And so I incorporate that in whatever I do. There's always a component that reaches back into the community. And so I tie that into any campaign that I do for a client, because I always believe that in order for you to be successful, it's you have to understand what it means to give. And a lot of brands, they adopt the mentality of money, money, money. I got to get that bag, or I got to, do this and that. And so I incorporate that into my campaign building. And then with me being in the media space for as long as I have, I've developed relationships. And yes, I want people to support, yes, I want people to, retain my services, but I'd rather you pour into a concept of giving back than, that aspect of it. That's more important to me. I serve on the community relations board for the Federal Halfway House here in Atlanta. And I see so much from that, people coming home from doing, 20, 30 years, when the 5 men were, exonerated, the exonerated 5, I helped, with some of those things. And it was like, there's more to be done. there's more to be done. And I felt like, how can I incorporate what I do and bring the kingdom into the marketplace and get people to understand that there's a component that's missing, and that's the community. That's those that, and it's not just the, I don't, sometimes when we think of the community, we think of the poor or the underserved. It's not just them, it's all of us. And so every year I do a pro bono work for nonprofits where I totally do their entire publicity campaign to help them develop, their structure, help them to develop their brand and set a foundation, that is sustainable so that they can do what their purpose is, whether it's giving back to the youth, giving back to men, women, domestic violence, whatever their cause is. So that's one of the ways that I utilize what I do to give back. As I said, the second is, with my clients, I instill in them, first of all, you come to me, I ask them, listen, do you trust me? Do you trust me, with your brand? Do you trust me with the campaigns that I'm developing for you for them to be successful? And, I'm of a spiritual mind. A lot of my clients may not be, and I don't push that on them, but assignment, I'm on assignment. And so my assignment is to bring the kingdom into the marketplace. And so in that, I incorporate those different elements to help, build my clients, to help build what I do. Even with my nonprofit, I just utilize my relationships that I had developed over time, to enhance, what I'm doing. And I say, hey, I'm thinking of, starting this nonprofit because I did a lot of volunteering and I did a lot of helping with other nonprofits. I felt like God had put something in me to do, myself. And so, I would talk to them when I would deal with them, whether it was at a photo shoot, whether it was at an event. Hey, I have this going on, and they would be so welcoming because I've nurtured that relationship. As Dee said, I've nurtured that relationship and I've connected with them, and so they were pretty open with being supportive of on the nonprofit side. So I utilize my relationships, and my connections to tap into what some people really want to do anyway. They just don't know where to do it or how to do it, and when it comes to, the PR side of things, when people see, these influencers involved, it draws them in, it draws them in to be more involved and say, okay, hey, she has so-and-so involved, and they come in and they, got their hands up trying to get in where they can fit in, to help. So influencer marketing is a part of what I do to help give back into the community, to help my nonprofit and to help other nonprofits, to get things done. One of the things with our magazine is that, with We Empower, we do not feature anyone that's not giving back. And it has to be something more than just stroking a check. You have to actually be engaged and involved. That's one of the requirements, whether you want to be on the cover or whether you just want, us to shine a light on you, from an article feature standpoint. You have to be doing something to give back. That's just required. So when we get a hold of these people that are giving back and they have nonprofits like T.U.C.K and, others, then we shine a light on them and what they're doing so that people can know, hey, T.U.C.K has this going on, with the youth, and he's doing this and that, or whatever, because there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes of, all the other stuff that we see that are really, really in the trenches, and people need to see that. And so that's another way that I utilize my platform and what I do to give back. I give back to those individuals that, are doing something. And like, Dee said, it's not I, if the culture got a problem, we all got a problem.
Right.
You know, that's just what it is. And we have to step up and do what we need to do to be a resolution. You know, there's many people out here doing so many different things. You know, you just jump in and get in where you fit in, you know, to help get it done. It's a like you said before, you know, it used to be a village. I grew up that way too. You know, my neighbor could tear my butt up and tell my grandmother that they did it, you know. So it's kind of the same thing, but us as adults, as a culture, you know, the culture is village. And we need to do our due diligence to you know, bring the community to the forefront because the society is not doing it.
Right. So with that being said, we do have another publicist that's in the comment section, Nicole M. Jordan, out of the greater Chicago metropolitan area, and she said it's so important for you to develop those relationships. That's a part of what we call public relations. And so, with that being said, I want to get back into what Tuck said. And now, Tuck, I'm a big advocate of this, and I want all of you to chime in. But Tuck, we gonna go back into something that we call the absentee of a father. It's mind blowing to a young man, and even more damaging to a young female. So we're gonna talk about the men first. How can I learn how to be a man, walk as a man, conduct myself as a man, navigate as a man? How do I learn to respect women if I don't have that guidance from a father?
Right.
And for the females, how can I know who I could trust or who I should love, rather than the first man that I was supposed to love and I was denied by him? So how do I ever trust a man? And so with us being adults and us in the advocacy forum, and you know, we're trying to impact and embrace the community and get it back to its true essence. So, and that absentee of a father is something that's really heavy in our community, and that absentee causes what we call emotional depression, mental depression, and it causes what we call social depression. So how can we really change the narrative on that?
I don't really know how we can change it, because the men have to, first of all, you know, it's about accountability. You as, you know, my dad, you know, he was a man and he took care of his kids. And my dad didn't run from none of his responsibilities. My dad told me years ago, he said, son, if you can't wake up and look at your kids, then you shouldn't have any. And that's how we were, you know, that's how we were, you know, that's how my granddad raised him to be, you know. And my dad was married to my beautiful mom for 55 years. And what was crazy about that was when I went to the 9th grade, you know, I went to the 9th grade with like 9 homeboys, nine very close friends, man. We were, man, you know, real tight, man. But I was the only one with a dad. The only one. And not one of those young men went to the 10th grade. Not one. And were they smarter than me? Probably was, right? Were they faster? Were they taller? Yes, you know. But I had something that was precious, that they didn't have, which was a man telling me or guiding me, right? But more importantly, there was a man that, you know, my dad was a strong disciplinarian. And when I got in trouble, trust me, you you felt that heavy hand.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was 6'6", 280. So
Wow.
that belt felt like the doggone death of God coming down.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So when I wanted to kind of make a little mistake, you know, the back of
The
my
back
head
of
was
your
thinking
head.
about that belt at home. You see, and see, my friends didn't have those issues.
That's right.
You know, they come in the house when they want to come in the house
Mm-hmm.
because you know most of their friends, well, you know, most of their moms was on drugs, their dad wasn't around, and they were watching their siblings. So they were the man of the house when they was 12 years old. You see, my dad allowed us to be kids. My friends could not be kids. They had to be adults when they were 11, 12 years old, feeding, right? So how can I go to social studies class and focus when I got 11, when I got a 10-year-old or a 6-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, sister hungry. So I can go to Gordon Street, right, and make $1,500 this week, or go to social studies class. What's more appealing, right?
Right.
So that was the struggle in my neighborhood, right? We grew up, let's say, in substandard conditions, and you know, there were no doctors, lawyers, and none of that stuff around there. You know what I mean? So, but we had strong men, but mentally, right? We didn't know that they were strong men because they did not have on, you know, the gold chains, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't have, you know, the cars with the rims on it, right? The
Mm-hmm.
gold teeth, right? They didn't have the prettiest girl. That was success to us. There was a misconception about what was true success. And
Mm.
my success wasn't my dad during that time, because my dad was, man, working hard, man, coming home, man, going to sleep. You know what I mean? Man, getting back up, man, going to work. Like, that was not success to me. You see what I'm saying? But we had so many young men who had no idea, right, what the true definition of, you know, success is, that they thought, you know, that selling drugs, right, robbing, killing, right,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sleeping with a bunch of women, that was
Gee.
success. And
Right.
that's where the narrative gets foggy at, because how can you blame them for something when they haven't been shown anything? You
Mm-hmm.
know. So my dad gave me security. Whenever my dad came home, he had this dog keychain that had like 10,000 keys on it. And when he came in the door, my dad would drop those keys like literally on the doggone kitchen table. No matter where I was in the house, when I heard those keys the drop. When I heard those keys drop, you know, I like the sense of security that came over my body was priceless, because I knew that I was all right. As long as he home, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of young men who didn't have that sense of security, right? So their big homie raised them, right? And not to get long-winded, but my thing is that we have to start with ourselves first. And we stop, we got to stop, we have to stop having babies by women that we don't tend to be with, period. Right?
Have mercy.
And
Well,
we
say
have
that again.
we have to stop having babies by women who we know we're not trying to be with.
Right.
Because you're just setting up the next generation for
I think
failure.
I feel a word coming on.
Being honest with you. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So I
True.
know so many dads, man, so many young men that cry out night. Like, they're hard during the daytime now,
Mm-hmm.
but they cry at night because they're pissed that their dad is still living and won't even contact them.
Mm-hmm.
Won't even come see them. Won't even write them. You see what I'm saying? And how can I tell a young man how to feel about that when my dad was in my life? You see, so I try my best to raise these young men to be the man who you intended to be. So if you go out here and meet a woman, you know what I'm saying, make sure you handle your business, make sure you stay out of jail, make sure you're being the best version of yourself first. Before you bring somebody else's child into this world, make sure you are who you need to be first. So that child will have a great example of who to be.
Right. And so after I say this, we're gonna go to commercial break. I'm gonna tell you at 14 years old, my dad gave me some of the best advice in the world.
Mm,
He said, son, if you don't do nothing in your lifetime for me,
mm.
I want you to stay out of jail and stay out of hell, and you're gonna be all right.
You're gonna be all right.
Yes, sir. But we're gonna go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, we're back at you once again. Coming back with the topic impacting the community. And so, with that being said, we're going to give our queen, DeAnna Bookert, the chance to chime in on, the absentee of a father and how it affects the youth, male and female. And, we definitely have to raise the bar if we're going to be doing mentorship to really get them out of that dangerous mindset where they
Mhm.
feel like if my parents don't love me, then how could I even love myself? Or how could I even believe in love? So how does that affect the youth when they don't have a father or even a mother in their life? Like how does that affect them and how can we impact the youth to really change the narrative the way they think?
Yeah, I think Tuck said a lot and hit a lot of key points from a male's perspective. From a female perspective, I think that the key thing is the mindset. We got to be able to check where we are mentally, which I think that goes into if you're not in a good space, and we know what, no matter what it is that you're doing, whatever your lifestyle is, you know whether you're in a good space or not.
Right.
We should not be producing and making babies. That's the first thing. That's both sides, male and female. And but that comes from being able to do that self check and self reflection. Because when working with different youth and mentoring, I also work with the mothers. And you'll be surprised how many women are out there who find comfort in having babies. It's someone to love, it's someone that's there for them when the fathers are gone. And so the mindset is a little different. So even where Tucker's saying, hey, if you're a man and you know you don't intend to be with that woman, don't have no baby. Same thing goes for the ladies. Hey, if you know he is not going to be around, you know he is not good quality, regardless where you are emotionally, this is not the time to have no baby. That is not going to keep a man.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's the first word. And
Mm.
so from there, then we'll be able to address some of these other things that we're seeing. I mean, here in Colombia last night, a 13-year-old was shot by his friend because they're
Right.
playing with the gun, and the gun was, it went off. And so now another life is lost because we have two kids that were playing with a gun. And how did they get a hold of a gun? And where in their mindset did it become okay for recreational time is to play with a loaded weapon? That's the big question. You know, as you said, when we were kids, how we were raised, I don't remember recreational time guns being a thing that we played around with. And not to say that we did everything right. Now, Lord knows we did our dirt, but that just wasn't it. And so the mindset of our youth are so different now because the parents are getting younger, grandparents are younger. So when we talk about a village, you're talking about grandparents that's closer to the age of what we would consider to be parents. They're in their 40s. You know, we have grandparents that are in their 40s. They're not 50, 60 years old anymore. And so it's really a culture thing that we need to address, and it's so much bigger. And it's really gonna take a complete change, an overhaul. Yeah, being a fatherless daughter myself, I can tell you, yes, I dealt with the rejection. I dealt with the feelings of abandonment. I went through all of that. I think the biggest thing that I can really just applaud and honor my mother for doing was she moved us, and I graduated from majority white school. You know, and I hate to say that's the answer. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody. I'm just saying in my case, it exposed me to a whole nother world. I went to school with kids that talked about college and they knew what college they was going to. And I remember going to the school for the first time with kids, other white kids in the classroom with me, and they're talking about Winthrop and they're talking about Clemson and USC. And I'm like, I had no clue. I was clueless because in my neighborhood where I came from, all of my family grew up at Eau Claire, and we didn't talk about college. It just wasn't part of the conversation. It was graduate high school, get a good job, and don't have a baby. That was the talk in my house because most of the women in my family, by the time they graduated high school, had a baby. My mom was a teen mom. So that was the generation or the thing that happened with the women in my family. So going to a school where majority white kids talking about college, it was a culture shock to me, but it exposed me to wait, hey, there's more than just what I see around in the neighborhood. There's you graduate high school and you could go off to college. It was different. So I think if a child does not have the stability of father, mother, I think that is where the village mentality comes in. And we need more mentors that are willing to step up and be like Tuck said, you got to be consistent and be hands-on. But again, that order and structure for your organization to be able to take care of the back office stuff, the business stuff is needed so that you can do the work because there's work that's needed and it needs to be consistent to be able to pour into the lives of the kids.
Right, right. So, you know, I know that a lot of times when kids are going through, they 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 ask questions, serious questions to adults.
Mhm,
So I was when I lived in Columbia, South Carolina,
mhm,
I lived on Broad River, Trenton Courts,
mhm,
so
mhm,
so had a young man told me one time, said, Mr. J, can I talk to you? I said, sure. He said, sit down, this is gonna be heavy. Now he 12 years old. He telling me to sit down, this about to be heavy. He said this about to be heavy. He said, Mr. J, why my dad loved the streets more than he loved me and my little sister?
mhm.
I just want to know why.
Yeah. And
And,
listen, let me tell
and
you, I worked with foster kids, and this young man, 15, his mother had given up on him, and she said that she wanted the court just to keep him. She no longer wanted anything to do with him. And I pulled that young man aside one on one, and I asked him, I said, what is it? I said, tell me, how do you feel right now? Where is that emotion coming from? And his mother remarried, and he had a stepdad, and the mom and the stepdad had kids. And he said, I don't know why my dad don't love me the way my stepdad loves his kids. It's real. And this young
lady,
boy acted out. He responded, he was rebellious, all of that. So yeah, that's real talk. And
man,
kids feel that way. Yeah.
and so I tell him, I said, well, have you had this conversation with him? He said, yeah, I could have a conversation with him if he wasn't going to jail all the time.
Mhm.
And he said, you know, he said, I've asked my mother to ship me and my sister off to live with my grandmother, which she lives in Maryland. And I think it would be a better life because as long as I stay here, I'm afraid that I'm gonna fall into the trap that my dad fell in. And so, you know, when you hear a young man at 12 recognize what's going on and he's afraid that he may fall into that trap, then you know, we definitely have to change the narrative on what these young men are seeing and you know what they're listening to in their ears and the type of conversation. Because when I was growing up, you couldn't be in grown people conversation. That was a no-no. You know, that was that you get thumped on your head, slapped in your mouth. You ain't been in grown folk conversation. So
That's true.
and then my thing is why you know you know I don't know if if love is blinding people, but if this brother is going in and out of jail like that, and he's putting babies in you and still going to jail like that, like I just want to know: is there a functioning brain, or is the love blinding you because you potentially think he's going to change, or you know what is it, you know what I mean? And then you see how your children is hurting, and if they're hurting, then you as a mother, I'm pretty sure you're hurting as well. So but why sometimes people can't get out of this situation to change the narrative so them and their kids could, you know, have some type of peace of mind, you know what I mean? Because in order to have a better life, you got to have peace of mind first.
Right. And I mean, to change the narrative and to say why, like Tuck said, I don't even know if we had an answer to that at this point. What I can tell you is science says that your brain for females is not fully developed until 25. For
Hmm.
men, it's not until age 28, closer to 30. So
Right.
if your brain is not fully developed until your late 20s, then I believe that we should not be making lifelong decisions at a young age. So early teen pregnancy, having babies at a young age, we could go into the whole thing, children out of wedlock and all that. No, let's just talk about the fact that you're not mentally at a place where you can make a decision to really think about the future.
Right.
And so if we have more parents that are having babies at age 20 and 21 and they still trying to figure out if they want to, be preteen, teenagers or young adults, they haven't even figured out life yet. So now they're parents. And then let's go back and unpack that some. So then they have some trauma that they may have experienced. Their father wasn't around, their mother wasn't around. So now they got childhood trauma, they got trauma from the adolescent years, from their teenage years, and now they about to add to that being a parent, and they're not even 25 yet. I think that's too much, and that I think that has produced some of the problems that we're seeing now. Now, is that the answer for every situation? Absolutely not. And so, but I think that we have to get to the mindset where it's one person, one child, one adult at a time, and like Tuck said, be consistent. I have one lady that's my mentee. Her baby is my baby, and until the Lord say different, I'm going to keep mentoring them. And that's the mindset that we have to be in, where we're pouring into other people, but not judging, and not condemning, but
Hmm.
until we see change. So we got to expose, everybody didn't come from a background where their mom could just up and move them to a majority white school. Everybody
Right.
didn't
Right.
have that luxury.
Right.
Like Tuck, everybody didn't have their mom and dad in the house.
Right.
So at some point, we just have to get to the point where we're consistent and pouring into someone until that change happens. And I can stand in the auditorium and give a powerful speech and send everybody home, but really, is that going to really produce any change? And so
Right.
sometimes we need some that are boots on the ground, that's going to do the legwork, that's going to be hands on to be able to impact the lives of youth and their parents, because the parents need it just as much as the kids.
Right. So this question is for you and Tuck. Now I ran into some of my white friends at a recent high school football game that I grew up with, and
It's
we
so
and
quite friends.
yeah. So and we got to talking about hunting, fishing, amongst other things. So we got to talking about hunting, fishing, and
Mhm,
sport. But
mhm,
they they have children now, and they asked me a question that nobody ever asked me before.
mhm,
They said, "Well, Jacob, at what age did your parents teach you about policy and procedure?"
mhm. That's
I
right.
said, "Are you talking about local government, state government, or nationwide?" He said, "Oh."
Mhm.
He said, I said, "Well, bro, I didn't. When I was young, I didn't follow politics." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because
Why
I was a
not?
kid. I was a kid being a kid. Like I didn't think about politics when I was younger, man. Like
Mhm,
when I was a kid. Then I got to high school, and then I was chasing girls, and I was playing sports and
mhm,
chasing some more girls and trying to play some more sports." And he was like, "Well, my papa set us down at probably 16, man." And he went over policy and procedure. He went over citywide, county, state, and government. And he said these are things that you must know if you want to obtain success. And I said, why? And he said, so if you're a business owner, there's things that your city councilman or your county councilman knows that can benefit your business, and you can get put on a list on where you get jobs, county or citywide,
mhm.
and that flourishes your business in the county and the city. And so now you become a household name when it comes to that business service
So
that
vendor.
you are giving. And
Mhm.
so, it was very interesting to me to know that they start talking to their children at 15 and 16
Absolutely.
about policy and procedure. So, and then, he was like, I was taught about business credit at 15, 16, man. He's like,
Mhm.
and taught about commercial land and
Absolutely.
rural areas. And he was like, so my question to you, D, is why wasn't we ever taught those things at 15 and 16? Or 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 was it some secrets that the white people had that we didn't know
Mhm.
because we was kept in the dark? Because back then the internet wasn't abrupt. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I don't think it was a secret. I think it was just education and exposure.
mhm,
So again, my mom said graduate high school, get a good job, don't have a baby. Went to the white school, and my peers were talking about college, but also they were talking about being CEOs and owners of companies. They weren't talking about just graduate and get a good job. No, they were talking about being the CEO of a company. So it was a completely different mindset that the parents were sowing into the children. And it's not just white. My best friend from school, her mom was very heavy into politics. And that's how I learned when I was in school, middle
uh-huh,
school and high school, because her mom took us to every ball, every gala. We met politicians, all of that, but it was all exposure. Had I not been exposed to all those things, then I honestly do not know what mindset I would be in now. But her mom took us to everything. So I don't think it was secrets. I think it was just education and different family makeups. So, and just like now, we have some households where some families they don't vote. Why? Because they don't know the importance of local government and going out and vote for city and county council. They don't know about voting for state legislature. They don't know. So that's where that education part come in. Even when it comes to, and I'm not going to go much detail in this in legal because it's not my area, but I do know this much. When we see on the news and we like to complain and say, oh, it was a majority white jury, right? Well,
Right.
black folks need to say yes to jury duty. If we say yes and start running from jury duty, then
Right.
we won't see some of the numbers that we see. I just
Mhm.
recently had jury duty, and let me tell you, some of those of us made such a scene because they wanted to leave. They did not want to do jury duty. Well, then you can't complain that you keep seeing all white juries. So it's
Right.
education, and we got to be educated on this stuff. So
Mhm.
when the lawyers come in to pick the jury, they have so many chances, and I don't know all the details of it. I do know this much: where they can say yes or no to a juror. And so when they start playing those numbers games, if the majority of the people there are white and there's only a handful of black, by the time they say yes or no to this one, then all the black people are gone, and the room is still left with white. Then guess what? You got an all white jury. So that's the first thing there. We can't complain about stuff if we're not going to educate ourselves and we're not going to expose ourselves and learn. I didn't know even that little bit that I know about the legal system. I didn't know that, but I looked up Google and read it. So we
Mhm.
got to
Mhm.
expose ourselves because I don't want to be one coming on saying, there go another all white jury. No, I need to educate myself. So we can't just say, oh, nobody told me. No, Google tell you everything. If you don't, then go to the library and pick up a book. So we got to get out of the mentality of complaining about everything. And we got to
Mhm.
take
Right.
another step and educate ourselves. We got to go with a
Right.
different mindset. Why? Because the streets are taking our children day, every day. And so we got to stop complaining about the problem. And even in this setting, we do enough talking. We talk, we talk, we talk, we talk. We do empowerment thing and we empower and all that. But we need people to be about action. And we got to start
Mhm.
educating ourselves and educating our community and telling people, we can't just keep all that stuff for ourselves. And then we
Right.
see people complaining and we don't, we got to educate and expose each other to truth and not just media opinions and gossip and stuff.
True indeed. True indeed.
Right.
So,
Right.
so
Right.
talk, man. With you having the the organization for the young men, how much do you guys talk about policy and procedure, and what's the level of explaining that you're able to give to these young men to kind of really help them understand and prepare them for the real world when it comes to that policy and procedure on how they can navigate through life when knowing policy and procedure, because it definitely matters when you know policy and procedure. you know it definitely enlightens you on a lot of different things,
Mhm,
in order to be successful in life.
Right. I think you have to know. First of all, you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
yeah,
And I think that with me, I've never been really heavy involved in politics. Um, but I have a lot of friends that are. And when I was growing up, like I said, we were not exposed to that. But luckily, what I've been, fortunate to do is develop, you know, very strong relationships with persons who are city councilmen,
mhm,
mayors, and mayors and people who hold, high office, but not just those, not just, develop those relationships, but I hold them accountable. And
Hmm.
what I've learned to do is now my young men, we expose these young men to these men. So now they can explain to them what they do and why it's so
mhm,
Hmm.
important. You know what I mean? And why it's,
Right.
because when I was growing up, bro, I didn't know who the mayor was. You know what I'm saying? But I've had the mayor, Stephen Benjamin, to come talk to my young men. So now they know that we have a black mayor.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So
mhm,
that's important. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
you have to be able. You can't just stand behind a podium. I mean,
right.
and talk. You got to come out there and touch your people.
Right.
That's it.
Let your people touch you. And now my young men, they have met councilmen, doctors, lawyers, you know, they have met senators,
Mm-hmm.
they they've met um, the majority whip, Mr. Clyburn,
Mm-hmm.
like they now know why it's so important, to vote and who am I voting for? You know what I'm saying? But more importantly, they know that they can be that next person, you
Right.
know, because now they have seen it, and for so many years, man, people just, well, not people, but there are so many young men who didn't know their greatness because they were not shown their greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have a young man like my good friend Derek Pugh, right, comes in and he talks to these young men, and he's a councilman and he's dressed in, jeans and Jordans, you know, like they can identify with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they can, because you have certain people who can meet them at their level, right? And
Right.
when they see this guy here, he's doing this right for his community, right? But yet he holds a high, you know, he holds a high office, but yet he can talk about rap, basketball, all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Dance, you know what I mean? And they're like, wow, you're a city councilman, like real, like, and it's like because so many young men think that that's corny, like you got to be a cornball to
Mm-hmm.
you know to pursue that kind of career. They feel like you're not playing basketball or football, or you're not a rapper,
Right.
or you're not a popular YouTuber. I mean, anything like that, then you can't be successful. And that's what I'm saying. My young men have to know that they're men of color who hold high positions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That were not corny and we're not lame and all that stuff, but they had a plan and they had a goal, and
Right.
and they executed that plan and goal. And sometimes they have to actually see that. So
Mm-hmm.
now that's the thing, man. It's about exposure, man. Just like Ms. Booker said, you have to expose these people, these young men, um, to more, not just more than because my dad would always say that you have to benefit from me being here. You see what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
we have to make sure that the next generation benefits from us being here. So we have to
Right.
make sure that they meet judges. I mean, you know, you know, not by going to court, but
Mm-hmm.
by being out. By being out within by going to workshops, right? You know, symposiums, stuff like that. Trying to make sure that you get out here because my young men have to know that your name, that's your brand. That's your
Right.
brand. You are your brand. So you have to make sure that you govern yourself accordingly at all times. So, you know, why is that so important? And so that always leads to value. Why should you value yourself? Why should you value your character? Why should you value, somebody like, Miss Booker? Like, why should I value her?
Right.
Because she's extremely valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how to talk to her or speak to her or respect her if they're not being shown that
That's right.
by another man. You see what I'm saying?
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, Tuck,
so
that's a whole
it's
nother conversation right there. That's
you
a
see what I'm
whole nother
saying?
one about relationships. That's a good one right there.
Yeah, right. You
It's
see what I'm
true.
saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to start from the core. You
That's
know,
right.
man. You have to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do as a man first to um to get out here and establish these relationships. You know, with these movers
Mm-hmm.
and shakers, so that whenever you get these people in front of your young men, and you have to make sure you get people who know how to talk to kids, man.
That's
You know,
right.
because there are
That's
so
right.
many people out here who have high positions, and they get in front of these kids, and they try to sound like I mean, they just you know they go beyond these kids' heads, man. You have to have a passion for working with the youth, and I think that sometimes when the kid can feel that you care, he'll listen.
Right.
That's
He'll
right.
listen. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. So, I kind of, went all over the place, but I just wanted to just, policies, and procedures, man. That that's important. But I feel like they have to get the basics first by seeing people that's doing the job first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's most definitely right, man. So I appreciate you dropping those jewels, man. And guess we're out of town, but we will be scheduling part two, and I'll let you guys know when we'll schedule part two because there's some more
Okay.
discussions I want to get into. I definitely want to get into, education, spirituality, and um, you know, commitment to your goals. You know what I mean? So, and we'll
Mhm.
definitely get into that as well. And I'll let you guys know when I'm gonna schedule part two. So, just want you guys to tell people where they can find you at, and then we'll get out of here.
Right. Well,
Oh, go
you
ahead, go
can
ahead, go
visit
ahead.
the. Oh, go ahead, Tuck.
Go ahead. Ladies first.
Uh, BookertAgency.com, Bookert Agency on social media. I will say on January 29th, I'm doing the tribal gathering, which is everything that we just talked about in a
Yep.
day conference. Tuck is one of the panelists, along with Ms. Davis, who's out of Atlanta. But we're going to be talking about kingdom wealth. We're going to be talking about business development. We're going to talk about creating a strategic plan and how we can impact the community. So this is bringing in ministry leaders, nonprofits, social groups, business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs, everyone coming in one room, and we're going to network. We're going to share information. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there too, King, as
Yes,
well.
yes, yes.
But it is,
I'll
go
I'll
ahead.
be calling you. I'll be calling you about to see if I can get a media pass because I work for a PR firm and I write for Access Magazine as well. So I'll be definitely
Absolutely.
talking about that.
So yeah, it's all about everyone coming together to share information, to network, but also to build that strategic plan so that you can make a more greater impact in your organization, in your business. Yeah.
Appreciate that. All right, Chuck.
You can follow me at well, you can go to my website tuckproject.org, and you can also go to my Instagram is Tuck Project SC, and you can also go to my Facebook. Facebook is Terrance Tucker, and you can also follow me at my South Carolina State page, the Bulldog Report, and you can catch me on LinkedIn as well, Terrance Tucker. Twitter is Terrance Tuck.
All right, you heard it
That's it.
first, man. The Chatterbox Weekend Jacob with Terrance Tucker and DeAnna Booker, the Bookert Agency LLC. I just want to thank both of y'all for coming on and chiming in and dropping those jewels. And I look forward to part two. And you guys have a wonderful and a blessed night.
Thank you so much, brother. Take care.
You as
Yeah,
well.
appreciate it.
All right. See you later, Miss Book.
All right.
All right.